Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Today is Thursday, April 16th, 2026. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Thursday that a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon would enter into effect at 5 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. That's midnight Friday morning in the Middle East. He said the deal followed, quote, excellent conversations with both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, and that he instructed administration officials to work on a larger Israel-Lebanon peace deal. Trump also invited both men to the White House, which would be historic, and the announcement followed talks between Israeli and Lebanese diplomats in Washington earlier in the week. That was the first time the U.S. has hosted such discussions, and one of only a few Israeli-Lebanese meetings in history. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam welcomed the deal in a post on X, but a source told Al Monitor that Netanyahu declined to hold a cabinet meeting on the matter, possibly fearing repudiation from members of his government. Netanyahu called the deal a, quote, time out, and said Israel would not be withdrawing from its positions in Lebanon, while the U.S. State Department said that Israel would cease offensive operations, but not actions in self-defense. Now, this was framed as a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, but the fighting is really between the Israeli military and Hezbollah. It doesn't directly involve the Lebanese armed forces. On that note, a Hezbollah lawmaker told Reuters that everything is contingent upon Israel halting its campaign, echoing similar statements by the group in the past. Trump told reporters later on Thursday that the deal does include Hezbollah. For context, fighting between Israel and Hezbollah renewed at the start of the Iran war in early March, when the group resumed its strikes on Israeli territory and the Israeli military escalated its strikes and ground operations in Lebanon. More than 2,100 have been killed since in Lebanon, while 14 Israelis have been killed, per local authorities in each country. Before that, a 2024 ceasefire was in place, though Israel had continued holding positions in the south and conducting near-daily strikes, saying Hezbollah had not withdrawn from the south per the truce terms. So how is the deal being perceived in each country? Netanyahu is actually facing political backlash over Trump's announcement. Here's Al Monitor's Rina Bassist on that.
Since the announcement of President Trump over the imminent 10-day ceasefire, we hear growing criticism against Prime Minister Netanyahu for going along with the plan. Netanyahu is being criticized by his own ministers, by several heads of opposition parties, and by residents of the north of Israel. Now, Netanyahu's ministers are accusing him of hiding from them the plan, updating them over the phone only, and after it already appeared in the press. The Security Cabinet did not vote on the ceasefire, and the ministers were forced to accept an already made decision by the premier, who said that when President Trump, Israel's greatest friend, advances such an initiative, Israel cannot say no. That was his argument. Opposition head Yair Lapid and head of the opposition party Israel Beitenu Avigdor Lieberman, both of them echoed concerns by residents of the north, by those living near the border with Lebanon, estimating that the ceasefire plan won't guarantee security and won't stop Hezbollah from attacking Israel, neither in the short run nor in the long run. For them, the Israeli government must do all that it can to remove the threat of Hezbollah, not to take dictates from Washington at the expense of the security of the Israeli citizens. The only opposition leader to support the ceasefire was actually Yair Golan, head of the Democrats, the left-wing party, but also he stressed that the ceasefire is not an objective by itself, but an opportunity to advance a comprehensive deal with Lebanon.
I also asked Rina about whether the Israel-Lebanon talks in Washington had made any measurable impact on bilateral relations, which formally do not exist.
The Israeli government did not publish any details on what was actually agreed upon in Washington. The only statement we had from the Israeli side was that of Ambassador Yechiel Leiter, who headed the Israeli team, saying that the talks went well and expressing his hope that these negotiations will unite Israel and Lebanon in a battle against Hezbollah. Now, like Lebanon, Israel sent its ambassador to Washington to head the talks. No official from Israel arrived from the meeting. Israeli media speculated at first that Netanyahu decided not to send his closest associate, Ron Dermer, to Washington, since he was not serious about advancing with these negotiations. But reports later on claimed that Ambassador later has become, in recent months, a very close, a very trusted advisor of Netanyahu, which was the real reason why the premier did not estimate it necessary to send anyone from Israel to accompany him for the talks. Netanyahu did not say officially he was withdrawing from his objective of fully disarming Hezbollah. Still pressured by Washington, it seems that he is starting to accept the Israeli military updated position. In other words, Israel will have to accept that the process of disarming Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon won't happen only via military actions, and that it must be accompanied by a diplomatic agreement.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25 for a discount.
Okay, we're back. I also spoke to Al-Monitor's Beatrice Farhat in Beirut about the next steps following Trump's ceasefire declaration. Take a listen.
So after Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, the focus now is on what might come next, what comes next, whether this could lead to negotiations or even probably a direct contact between President On and Netanyahu. Yesterday, Trump mentioned that the leaders of the two countries would be speaking today. And there were multiple reports of a possible call between the two. But that didn't happen. Instead, Aoun held a call with Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State. And according to several reports, Aoun informed Rubio that he was not planning to speak directly with Netanyahu at this stage. Later, after the ceasefire was announced, Trump said that he will invite both Netanyahu and Aoun to the White House. So for now, it seems the ceasefire could be an opportunity or probably could provide an opening for either a call between the two leaders or direct negotiations between the two sides.
Beatrice and I further discussed how the ceasefire terms are not exactly clear to Lebanon, and relevant to the possibility of a Netanyahu-Aoun exchange or larger deal. She goes over how Hezbollah has been responding to the government's overtures towards Israel.
But the ceasefire could still face challenges, mainly in relation to Hezbollah. As we know, the group acts independently from the state. We've seen that when it launched its recent operation against Israel in support of Iran, and before that in support of Hamas in October 2023. So Hezbollah may not commit to the ceasefire and continue its attacks. This could be true since the group and its supporters have repeatedly accused Aoun and his government, led by Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, of colluding with Israel, of treason, and of ignoring the people's suffering, the displaced, the victims, and their suffering. Also, since details of the agreement remain unclear, we still have some major unanswered questions. Will this ceasefire include an end of aerial attacks across all of Lebanon, or will they continue only in the south? Since Israel or Netanyahu has repeatedly said that attacks against Hezbollah will not stop. Additionally, the presence of Israeli troops, which are now deep inside Lebanese territory and completely encircling Bint Jbeil and Khiem. So the plan for Israel to maintain its presence in the south, to eventually establish a buffer zone. Will they withdraw? These are all questions that are still unclear at this point.
I'll conclude by going over the US and Iran angles to this. It's worth noting that Trump has been lobbying for the ceasefire for some time, pressuring the two parties to that end. Now, in terms of a larger peace deal, Lebanon, given its history with Israel, joining the Abraham Accords or making some sort of full normalization agreement would be very significant. But with Hezbollah in the picture, that would be difficult. And as Al-Monitor has reported, the disarmament of Hezbollah is not happening overnight, despite the Lebanese government's stated efforts. U.S. pressure on this issue is nonetheless clear, and the talks in Washington show at least some headway. With Iran, it's notable that they have been pushing for Lebanon's inclusion in these ceasefires in the region related to the wider U.S.-Israel-Iran war. And that's noteworthy because ending Iranian support for proxies like Hezbollah has been a U.S. demand in the negotiations with Iran, but so far Tehran has not budged on that. In a statement Thursday, Iranian parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who is one of the last senior figures left living and in his position, said that the ceasefire was, quote, nothing but a result of Hezbollah's steadfastness and the unity of the axis of resistance. He added that Iran will, quote, deal with this ceasefire with caution. Now, a senior Pakistani delegation was in Iran on Thursday to deliver a U.S. message with regard to the talks, but no new round of discussions is scheduled. Thanks for listening to the Al-Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al-Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.